I am here in Medjugorje and I'm with, what's your name?
Cyndi Peterson.
Cyndi, you have a long story and I want to listen to it again. I was crying listening to your testimony on Mary TV. Go there too. Mary TV is good testimonies. What's your journey to Medjugorje?
I was called to Medjugorje actually from a book falling off a shelf in a bookstore. And it's a crazy story, but I felt something inside of me was missing. And I really was looking for something to fill it, but I had tried everything in the world. I mean, I was a doctor. I always wanted to be a doctor. I'm married to a beautiful man, still am, had three beautiful boys, and I have my own private practice. And I feel like there's something missing inside of me. So I don't know that I'm praying. I was raised Catholic. But God was not a part of my life at that point. So I'm reaching out for something. And one day I just pulled over into a Christian bookstore to get a baptismal gift for my niece, who was going to be baptized that following weekend. I thought I was going to bring her a sweater. That's how my faith was at that point. And I thought, well, maybe I should get something like that. So I go in there and I start looking at the book section after I found a gift. And as I'm looking at it, I notice out of the side of my eye, there's a book on the top shelf that is literally just moving off the shelf. And I see it teetering and it falls off right at my feet. And it is Wayne Weibel's book, Medjugorje, The Message. And I can't believe what's happening, to be honest with you. So I actually went behind the shelf to see if anybody jostled it, but nobody had. And then I picked it up and it reminded me of my mother. My mother had just passed away. My mother spoke to me once about Medjugorje. She said there were some children over here seeing Mary. And I didn't really think much about it. My mother just passed away, though, and I missed her terribly. So I really wanted to buy the book because it reminded me of my mother. And I wanted to know what the church said. I wanted to know if it ever stopped, what happened to it. Take the book home. I hide it in my closet because I just don't want to have a conversation about this with her husband. I just want to read it. And so I go that night and I get the book out. I start reading it. And as I'm reading this book, I cannot believe that Medjugorje is still going on. This is back in 1999. I can't believe it's still going on. And as I'm reading it, the Holy Spirit comes through me. And it's like this energy that comes through the top of my head, through my entire body, out through my hands. And I don't know what's happening, but at that moment, I was just infused with this incredible amount of faith. Like my faith was given to me, like I knew God was real with everything. I knew Mary was real. I know Jesus is real. I know Medjugorje is real. And I know they're just trying to get our attention. And as I'm dealing with all of that, I have this vision in my mind's eye given to me of me standing on a stage in front of an entire audience of over 10,000 people. And I'm not talking to them about medicine. I'm talking to them about my faith. And everything inside of me got sick because I didn't want to do that. That was the thing I didn't want to do. I just found out God was real like a second ago. And now I'm going to be talking about my faith. And I literally took the book and I threw it across the room because I wanted to get it away from me. And I said, no, 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 not me. You've got the wrong person. And, but I knew I was going to do this. I knew I couldn't get out of it. I finally got to sleep that night. And, I wanted to go to Medjugorje so badly after that. I just wanted to go. I couldn't get it out of my mind. But I couldn't just go to my husband at this point in my life and say, hey, Drew, Mary's the mother of God's appearing halfway around the world and I want to check it out. I think he would think I was crazy. So long story short, I finally arranged the trip and I come over here and I love Medjugorje. I loved every bit of it. But I saw people's rosaries turning gold. I saw the sun spinning several times. I witnessed the physical healing here. And the very first day I got off the bus here, you know how you travel, you get here late. I get off the bus. Everyone's falling into their rooms, with their luggage and just going to bed, but not me. It's completely dark out. All I can hear is one rooster crowing in the dark. There's no light pollution here. And I'm sitting outside and I hear this man walk towards me. And he comes out of the darkness. He says, hi, my name's Jim. I'm on your trip and I'm going to go up to Apparition Hill where Mary first appeared. I just don't know if you want to come with me. And I said, are you kidding me? Yes, I want to go. So my brother was on the trip. I got him. We found our way up this hill, prayed right there. Was just a metal cross at that point, not the statue where Mary is right now. And then we made our way down to the Blue Cross. And we were just sitting on that stone bench, this man, myself, and my brother, when all of a sudden he slides down on his knees. And I think he's having a heart attack. And I'm about ready to say, "Are you okay?" When I hear him say this, he says, "My children, thank you so very much for coming. You have made my son so very happy. Enjoy nature, enjoy your lives. They're as fleeting as that of a flower."
Mhm.
You edit it all.
Wow, keep going. This is so beautiful.
So I can't believe that I'm here less than 24 hours and I see Mary. I mean, I
You
can't believe
heard
I'm
her.
here less than 24 hours and I hear this message from Mary. And I looked at him and I said, "Was that Mary?" And he said, "Yeah." And I go, "How do you do that?" And he said, "Well, I've been evaluated by the church. I've been evaluated especially by the church of Medjugorje. I've been through all these prayer sessions, and apparently it seems that I'm receiving Mary's messages. I have to have a spiritual guide. I have to be very obedient. But yeah, but I knew it was Mary. I knew it. And the minute that message started, I was flooded with the smell of roses at the same time. So I remember I thought, I can't wait to come back here tomorrow when it's light out and find all these rose bushes because it was so intense. And I went back and
There's
just
none.
a pile of rocks.
Yeah.
No. So anyway, I went on and again, I saw, people's rosaries turning gold. I saw the physical healing, witnessed the spinning of the sun. I went home and I told my husband nothing. And he said, "How was your trip?" And I was like, kind of weird, but, and he wanted to know about it. I go, "I just want to get back in my life right now." But I found so much peace in Medjugorje and I didn't know that God was preparing me. And so, before I left for my trip in Medjugorje, I had found out I was pregnant. So I was a few months pregnant when I came here for the first time. And I went on to have that child. And it was a girl. I've got 3 healthy boys. Never thought I could have a girl. And now I've got my faith and now I have a girl. And I couldn't believe that God would be so wondrous for me. And I said it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I tell people it was the best thing that happened to me. But I found out that there was something wrong with my daughter. Her name's Kelly. And she couldn't move. She couldn't move her arms. She wasn't moving her legs. She wasn't sitting up. She wasn't holding her head up. She wasn't meeting her developmental milestones. And I thought that she would catch up and be just developmental delay. But it eventually became out that there was something wrong with her. When your friends start asking, "Do you think there's something wrong?" It kind of makes it real. I hated that first question. I hated it. But it made me have to go and look into it. And I took her to doctor after doctor after doctor. And I tell people to be a physician and spend your life helping people and not have a doctor be able to tell you anything but, "I don't know what it is, but it's really serious." And so I'd go to another doctor, same thing, until I finally found a pediatric neurologist who looked at Kelly, and I could tell she knew what she had. I could tell. And she said, "Cyndi, we're going to do some blood work. I'm going to call you back. This test is going to take about 2 weeks. We'll call you and your husband in." And I said, "I know you know what she has. What is it?" She said, "I don't even want to go there until I get the blood result, but you must know it's very serious." So I went from being hopeful because I now had a diagnosis to, I don't know.
Despair.
I don't know if I want to know this diagnosis. So 2 weeks later, she calls us in and she sits us down and she says, "Well, we have the results on Kelly and it's not good. She has a disorder called spinal muscular atrophy." She said, "I'm sure you guys have heard of it." I was like, we looked at each other like, "No." And she said, "Well, it's a lot like Lou Gehrig's disease, like ALS, where you start losing all the muscle strength that you have." And she said, "It's an autosomal recessive disorder. Both you and your husband carry it. And 1 in 80 people carry it. And so it's really hard for 2 people to get together. And when they do, only 1 in 4 pregnancies will show this." And all I was like, great. I mean, I go, "I know it's not great, but now we have a diagnosis. Let's get on with the treatment." And she said, and I'll never forget this. She looked at me, she said, "There is no treatment. It's 100% fatal." And all I could get out was how long. She said 9 months is the average lifespan. And so I said, "Oh my gosh, she's already like 4.5, 5 months old." And so I stopped working right away. And I started taking her to anybody that showed her any bit of help. I mean, I took her to healers. I took her to anybody that had any help, but nothing was working. And my friend who had the message for me the first day in Medjugorje, I called him and I said, his name was Jim. And I said, Jim, I think I need to take Kelly to Medjugorje because that's where I saw the physical healing. And I went to my husband and I told him, before this all started, I said, Drew, medicine has failed us, but I know that God can heal because I saw physical healing in Medjugorje. And I told him about everything, my whole life and all these things. And he's like, why didn't you ever tell me this before? And I said, Drew, because I thought you would leave me. I go, my father always talked about leaving my mother. And so I had that wound inside of me. And so I thought you'd say I was crazy and you'd leave me because I would never leave you, which was the most beautiful thing I ever heard. But anyway, we'd had prayer services. We had healing services for Kelly. We ended up taking her to Medjugorje. And when she was here, Vishka prayed over her. Father Yozo prayed over her 3 separate times. So many people were in town that prayed over her, but on the way home, she ended up getting sick on the flight home. And I thought she was going to pass away on the airplane, to be honest with you. We landed that flight. We had the flight attendant hold everybody and we got off first. We didn't even wait for our luggage. We went straight to the hospital and she was admitted to the ICU. Mm-hmm. And in the ICU, she ended up pulling through that hospitalization. But when I was in there, a medical student came into the room and he kind of popped his head in and then he popped out. And I called him back in. I said, you could come in here. I said, why don't you look at my daughter? Because if somebody could have helped me and known what this was in the beginning, it would have been a lot easier. And he said, oh, thank you. I have seen Kelly. I've looked at her, but I wanted to talk to you. And I said, about what? And he said, about Medjugorje, this place that you two went and brought your daughter. Where is it? She goes, I've been to Fatima. I've been to Lourdes. I've been to the Holy Land. I've never heard of Medjugorje. And I was like, oh. So I told him about it. And as I'm telling about it, I hear this voice that says, give him your rosary. And so I keep talking about Medjugorje, and I hear again, give him your rosary. But I don't want to give him my rosary because I'll tell you, when I went to Medjugorje, I had all these things happen. The only thing I wanted to happen was my rosary to turn gold, and it never did. Everybody else's rosary turned gold but mine, and I was a little upset about it. And now I have this rosary. I'm going through all this struggle and this pain, and I've got a rosary that has 3 links turning gold. The links between the 3 first Hail Mary links as you lead into the rosary, they're all gold. And that rosary meant everything to me. And now I've got this voice telling me to give it away. There's no way. So anyway, I gave him a pamphlet, I gave him a website, but I didn't give him the rosary. And then I left that day and I felt terrible because I realized I denied God. And I felt so bad. That rosary actually broke and I was really grateful when it did. So I didn't have to look at it every time and think, I denied a man's soul. I denied God. So I end up getting a new rosary that night. I bought 2 rosaries and I bought a crucifix in my first trip to Medjugorje. So I get my second rosary. I'm praying on the rosary that night and I look at it in the middle of the rosary and my heart stops because every single link of that rosary had turned gold while I was praying on it. Every single link. And I fell on my knees and I said, oh my God, I am so sorry. I get it. I need to do what you ask me when you ask me, or you won't use me anymore. And I want you to use me. I said, I will never deny you ever again. And I've lived my life that way ever since. So I go on with my life. And my friend who had that first message in Medjugorje, Jim, calls me on the phone shortly after that and says that Wayne Weibel is actually going to be in his hometown. I wanted to know if I wanted to come up and see him. And I said, yes. And I'm bringing Kelly because I know that when Wayne had prayed over people that they were healed sometimes. So I brought Kelly to Wayne. Wayne prayed over Kelly. Nothing happened. But I found out that night when my friend prayed the rosary that Mary often came through him with messages for people in the group. And so we're praying that rosary that night. And the very first message was, look at Kelly. Do you see how happy she is? She's so happy that she has Jesus in her heart. And I was so happy to hear that. That's all I wanted to know, that Mary and Jesus knew. I mean, I knew they knew, but I just wanted to hear it. So I was a little surprised later on in the middle of the rosary when the message was, bring Kelly to the middle of the room, lay her on the floor, everybody gathered around her and placed their hands on her. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. I've spent months trying to get her healed, and this is it. Because when I saw the physical healing in Medjugorje, that's what happened. Everybody laid hands on this person. She got red hot, and then she was healed. So we're all laying our hands on her, and the message is, do you see the way you look at Kelly? It's the same way I look at every single one of you. You see yourselves as old and worn out. I see you young and beautiful. I see you with just as much love as you look at Kelly with. And then the message is this. There are many prayers for Kelly's healing, but you need to pray that God's will is done in her life. And my heart sunk. And I'm hoping there's something more than that, because I've spent my whole time trying to get her healed. And now I find out it's not God's will. I never thought it wouldn't be God's will. I just assumed he would want to heal her. And I had never prayed for his will to be done. And I couldn't believe it wasn't going to happen. And so now I've been given my cross, and I've got to carry it through. There's nothing I can do to get out of it. God's not going to heal my child. And so I go back home, and I get on the airplane. But before I got on the airplane, this is back when actually people handed you your boarding pass. And this one woman looked at Kelly because she knew she was sick, and she said, you have a connecting flight through San Francisco. I'm going to make sure. I'm going to get your boarding pass now so you don't have to stop. You don't have to talk to anybody. It'd be easy. I said, fine. So I'm waiting for her, and I'm talking to my friend Jim. I look over, and I'm like, where did she go? It's been like 10 minutes. And she sees me catch her eye, and she comes running over, and she says, I am so sorry, but I have been trying to get you your boarding pass. I've actually talked to 2 supervisors. I've tried to override the computer, but I cannot issue you a boarding pass. And I said, that's okay. I go, thank you for trying. It's okay. I'll just get it the next time. So I get to San Francisco, I land, and I go to get my boarding pass, and the same thing. No one can issue me a boarding pass. And now I'm thinking it's weird. This is strange. But they said they'll get me on the plane, just come back. Even if they had to handwrite you one. So I go, okay. So I walk in at the boarding time. Sure enough, they have a boarding pass waiting for me. I get on the flight. They had a nice aisle seat like I requested. And I had Kelly laying on the middle seat, which was open at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, I hope that this seat stays open so Kelly can lay on it, because she had absolutely no muscle tone. So every time you held her, she crumpled like a rag doll, and she was in pain. And I didn't think to buy her a seat at the time. And so I'm just thinking, I hope it stays open. And I realized, I think I jinxed myself. And I looked up, and there was this man standing in the aisle looking at me. And I said, this is your seat, isn't it? And he said, yeah. And he's this nice young man, probably 20 years old, navy camouflage. And he's wearing a trident, Navy trident insignia on his chest. And I can see he's a Navy SEAL. I spent 10 years in the Navy. And I was a flight surgeon. I flew some helicopters and worked a lot with the Navy SEALs. And I really respect everything they do for our country. They will lay down their lives for us, and we never even hear about it. And so I'm telling him everything about how I love him when I hear this really, really tight, quiet voice. So quiet that I could have ignored it. I really could have ignored it. But one of the things I did, Mary asked us to do those 5 things, the 5 stones, right? So it's praying the rosary every day, which I was doing, going to confession once a month, reading the Bible, Eucharist, the Mass, and then big one is fasting, right? No one wants to do that, right? So that's your 5th stone. So for fasting, since I was pregnant and I was breastfeeding, I didn't want to stop eating. So I did. So I tell people I took the thing that I loved the most, actually more than food, out of my life, which was music. And the reason I took it out is because I always had a song in my head. I was always listening to music. I was always in my head. But when you do that, you have that noise going in your head, and you can't hear God. And God talks to us all the time if we listen. We have to train ourselves. And so all of a sudden I hear this little teeny quiet voice that says, I placed him right beside you. Are you going to deny me? And I laughed to myself. I said, no, I think I deserve that. But I told you I wouldn't deny you. What do you need? And I hear, I need you to give him something for me. And I said, what? And he said, your crucifix. And I laughed. I was like, sure. The only thing left that I have from Medjugorje, of course, you're going to ask this of me. I said, okay. Okay, I learned my lesson. You know what it means to me, but if he needs it, I will give it to him. So I took that crucifix off of my chain and I put it in my pocket because I'm looking at this guy going, yeah, sure, I'm just going to hand this to this guy. He's going to think I'm crazy. No way. So I think I know what I'll do. You know, when you land the plane and all the doors are stuck for like 10 minutes, you can't get off the flight. I'll give it to him then. And he can have it. And if he's uncomfortable with it, we can both leave. It's no big deal. And I just start to lean back when all of a sudden I get this surge of adrenaline that goes through my entire body. And I literally feel like I'm going to come out of my skin. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, you're not comfortable with, you don't want that plan. You don't like that plan. And I have to give this to him now, don't I? And I hear yes. And I'm like, all right, but you have to help me because this is a little uncomfortable. And so as soon as I said that, I kind of looked over and I glanced at him and our eyes caught at that moment. And I just said, out loud, I said, you're going to think I'm crazy and that's okay. But sometimes I get these messages and I'm supposed to give you something and I'd like to give it to you now if that's okay. I realized why I couldn't get my boarding pass was because God was working on sitting us together. And he just looks at me and goes, okay, and holds out his hand. And I immediately think, wow, this is so easy. I could do this all day. This is great. So I take my crucifix out of my pocket and I put it in his hand and I said, I'm supposed to give you this. And he looks at it and he looks at me and he goes, well, that's kind of crazy. And my heart just sunk. I was like, oh my gosh, this is mortifying, Lord. And I remember saying, this is why you have so little friends, Lord. This is why no one wants to go through this. And he just looks at me and I just laughed. I go, I know I am. And out of my mouth, I hear myself say, and I'm supposed to tell you something. And I literally sat back. I was like, and I'm screaming in my head to the Lord, like, you said, give him something. I gave him something. You didn't say, tell him something. I don't have anything for him to tell. And he's looking at me. I'm like, Lord, he's looking at me. And I realize he's not going to tell me. I'm just going to have to like start moving my mouth. He's not telling me anything. So I start moving my mouth, just saying, I'm supposed to, and I hear my voice come over because I'm supposed to tell you that he loves you very much and he does hear you. And he looked at me and his eyes filled with tears. He dropped his head in his hands and then he looked up at me with tears streaming down his face and he said, oh my God, you have no idea what that means to me. You have no idea what that means to me. Thank you for telling me that. And all I could get out, because I was still in shock of how that even came out of my mouth, was, that is not from me. So I said, I go, that is not from me. And he goes, I know it's not from you. It couldn't be from you. But thank you for telling me that. And he took that crucifix and he held it in his hand and he prayed with it, would hold it to his chest, look at it over and over for 2 straight hours. And I realized I couldn't have waited to give it to him at the end because he needed to pray with whatever was going on in his life. So back to my life, Kelly goes back into the hospital. But I will tell you this, I realized at that point that God was not going to heal my daughter, but he was going to use me to comfort other people. And I will tell you that unless you've suffered pain, unless you've suffered a cross, people won't listen to you. And people don't believe in God because you haven't been through anything. And I realized I was going to comfort other people. So back to my life. Kelly goes back into the hospital for a second time. She has a tube put down her because she can't eat anymore. And the doctors are taking beautiful care of her, but they pull Drew and I aside, my husband, one day, and they say, you can leave your daughter here in the hospital and we'll take care of her, but there's nothing more we can do. Or you can take her home and she can pass away in your home. And so we right there just decided to take her home, and we took her home immediately. And because my husband and I are both physicians, and because hospice gave us great medical equipment, she stayed alive a lot longer than she should have, probably many, many weeks. But one day I went in there and I just knew, and I screamed for everybody to come. And Drew came and took all the tubes off of her, all the wires off her, and I just held her in my hands, and she just passed away. And I tell people it wasn't a horrible death. She just slipped away. It was actually kind of beautiful in a weird way, but it ripped my heart out of me. And I still feel like there's something missing in my life. And I remember telling the Lord, I can't go on. I can't live. Just take me too. I don't want to live. And then I looked up and I see my husband and my 3 children crying. And I'm like, okay, I'll stay. I have to stay. I can't. I can't leave. Plus, I was like 3 months pregnant at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one day I was feeding Kelly when she was about 5 months old when it hit me. I'm carrying this genetic disorder, and I could have another child, and I could have another child with this disorder. I don't know what the responsible thing to do is, because I'm okay with all of the church teaching now. Church teaching says remain open to life, and I'm okay with that. So I'm praying and praying and praying and praying so intently for God to let me know what I'm supposed to do. And I remember telling him, I will have another baby if, no matter what, if you wanted to have spinal muscular atrophy, I will have that child. If you don't want me to have another child, that's fine too. If you want me to have a quote normal child, and I say quote normal, I would love that as well, because I've realized that children with special needs bring us so close to God. It's unbelievable. They, you have such a joy in life, and you appreciate life for what it really is, and you understand the purpose of life when you have a child like that. You don't get lost in the world. You get lost in distractions. And there's so much love that comes out of a child like that. When we take all those children out of our lives, we are robbing ourselves of our humanity and of our destiny. And I'd really caution people, if you have a child with special needs, I see people with them, and I go up, I say, you were so blessed, because you know the reason of life, you know the purpose of life, and you will find your way home to heaven. And we need to really cherish these children. So I said, I will do anything. I just don't know what you want. And I'm understanding that God's will is the most important thing, not what happens in our lives, but that God's will is carried out. So I'm praying for this. I go to my mailbox, and in there is a letter from my friend Jim. Now, we don't talk. We don't talk hardly at all. And I don't know why he's written me this letter. But in it, he said, I open up this letter, and it says, Dear Cyndi, Our Lady came at 3 a.m. on May 22nd with a message for you. I don't know what I don't know what your heart needs to know. Only you and her know. But, take care, So I opened the message, and inside there's a card that he wrote in the middle of the night. There's another card in there, and I read it. And the opening line is, my daughter. And he does not know what I'm praying about. The opening line is, my daughter, don't let your womb grow cold. That Kelly is a gift from Jesus and her to us and our family. That her mantle of protection is covering us, to not be afraid. A few other things, and then she said at the end, pray, 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 and she signed it, love, Mom. I mean, we all know she's our mother, but to hear her call herself your endearing term for your mom is an amazing thing. And I always tell people, we have our maternal mothers, but Mary is our spiritual mother. As much as your earthly mother loves you, your spiritual mother loves you infinitely greater. She is such a great, tender mother. And we just really need to understand her role in our lives, that she wants what's best for us, and that's to go to her son. So I go to my husband, and I said, hey, Drew, just got a letter from Mary. You want to read it? You want to hear it? He goes, yeah. So I read him the letter, and he says, and I said, what do you want to do? He goes, well, we're supposed to have another child. But you have to understand, my husband wanted like 12 children. So I was like, Drew, you have to understand that this could happen again. We could have another child with spinal muscular atrophy. What do you want to do? And he looked at me and said, Cyndi, we're being asked to have another child. Let's have another child. I got pregnant immediately. And I remember my friends were saying, God would never ask this of you again. He's so happy with the way things happened. You're just going to be a blessing in your life. And I remember thinking, I'm not so sure. But you hear that so much. You hear people tell you, you start believing what you want to hear. And so I got myself into this thing, well, maybe this will be a normal child. That would be great. And so when she was born, she came out so strong. It was amazing. Of course, it was another girl. I'm like, of course you'd give me another girl. Of course. And Kelly never moved when she was born, really. She was always really weak. I just thought she was a girl. They were weak because I never had any girls. So when she was stronger than any of my boys at birth, stronger than any of them. And so they took blood at the birth, and I went to my first pediatrician's follow-up, checked her out. Everything's great. You have a healthy, normal baby. And I said, what about the blood test? And he says, what blood test? I said, the blood they took at the delivery to make sure the baby doesn't have spinal muscular atrophy. He said, I don't know anything about it. I'll check and I'll call you back. So that night he calls me and says, oh, the blood got contaminated. They had to throw it out. You need to bring Sarah in. And I seriously didn't want to have her go through the needle stick. said, she's normal. She's strong. She doesn't need it. And my husband convinced me, let's just put it behind me. So we went in and I had the blood test done and I forgot about it. And I was playing with Sarah one day when the phone rang and it was my husband. And he said, Cyndi, are you alone? I said, I'm with Sarah. What's going on? And he said, are you sitting down? I said, Drew, what is this? What are you doing? And he goes, well, we got the blood test back on Sarah. And I remember laughing. I was playing with Sarah and I remember laughing. I go, yeah, and it's normal. And he said, no, it's not. And I just said, no, like 25 times. I said, no, Drew, no, she is strong. She is strong. She's fine. And he said, Cyndi, I don't pretend to be any less devastated than you are, but the blood test says she has the same thing as her sister Kelly. She has spinal muscular atrophy. And I couldn't believe it. I was blindsided and I did it to myself, you know? So I had a book of messages from Mary and I grabbed it and I took Sarah, and I always took my girls every day to adoration. We went to daily mass and we went to adoration every day. And that's where I first started hearing the Lord speak. If you want to hear the Lord's voice, go to adoration and spend time there and be quiet and listen. Don't talk so much, just listen, and he will transform your heart and you will learn to hear him. And so I knew I needed to hear from God at that moment, that this wasn't some random statistic. So I grabbed her and I went to adoration and I fell on my knees and I said, Lord, please let me open randomly to something in this book that assures me this is what you want. Because I can't live with the fact this is some random statistic. I need to know for sure this is your will. So I opened randomly this book and I immediately found this message that said, praise be Jesus, my dear little children, praise be God. Please do not be sad or confused when you realize your plans may not be God's will. His plans for you are wondrous and they're for your good. Praise be Jesus. And so I was like, I couldn't have asked for a better message because I'm that way. I need to know black and white. Let me go. I'm okay with it. I just want to know. So I shut the book. I said, thank you. I know this is your will. Thank you. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. It's the only way I could get through this. I said, but I'm not going to pray for this child's healing. It's not that I don't want it, Lord. I will for sure know I want her healed. For sure know. But I can't go through all that again. I can't do that and find out it's not your will. So if you want to heal her, you can heal her here. I'm not taking her to Medjugorje. I'm not doing all prayer services heals. It doesn't mean I don't believe you can't heal, but I'm not going through that again. And so I went on with my life. And then one day I'm in adoration and I hear that I'm supposed to go back to Medjugorje. And not only that, I'm supposed to go on retreat. The Croatian priest, Father Sudac, do you remember him? So he had the crucifixion wounds on his wrists, and he had this cross on his forehead. He still does, and on his ankles. So I'm thinking, and I remember saying, I said, I'm too tired. I can't go, because I was being treated for depression. I was, I've gone through a lot, and I was being treated for depression. And I tell people, you can still believe in God, and you can still have a wonderful prayer life and a wonderful relationship with the Lord and still have medical problems. It doesn't mean everything goes away. And so I said, Lord, I'm too tired. I am way too tired. It's hard for me to get through the day. I can't go on a retreat. And I hear in my heart, you're not going to deny me, are you? And I was like, oh. I said, okay, I'll go. So I went on the retreat. The very first thing I hear on the retreat is Father Sudac coming out, and I'm in the front row with 60 people in this room. And he comes out of the room and he stops in front of me and he looks at me and he goes, you need to know that all suffering has meaning, especially the suffering of the holy innocents. And I was like, okay, I think I can go home now, because to know that my children's suffering have meaning, that's tremendous. It means it gives value to everything. And I was offering it up, but I go on to this retreat and all I hear is about healing, how to get a miracle. You do this, you do this, you do this, you pray, you fast, you prepare, and then you ask, and you leave no room for doubt. And then you start immediately giving thanks from that point on for your miracle. Whether it takes 2 weeks or 2 years, you pray every day and you say thank you. And it's not that I don't believe God can't heal. I 100% believe God can heal. I just don't know that it's his will. And I'm thinking, I already told him I wasn't going to pray for it. Is he telling me to pray for it? I can't live with any regrets. So I said, okay, I'll pray for it. The next day, I went in front of adoration and I poured my heart out and said, please heal her if that is your will. Please heal her. I fasted. I did a 40-day fast for Sarah. I'm on retreat. I can't pray anymore. I'm prepared. I'm asking. And I immediately started giving thanks. And I go home and I pick up my daughter, Sarah, and she kicks me. She hasn't moved her legs in 2 months. And she gently nudges me with her foot against my leg. And I'm thinking, wow. And I watch her and she starts moving her legs. She starts moving her arms. She starts sitting up. She starts taking solid food. When my daughter Kelly only ever took liquid food, average lifespan is 9 months. She was outliving it. My doctors are saying she's defying medical odds. And I'm like, I know, I think she's healed, you know. And there's such joy in our lives. And I will tell you something that I don't share with a lot of people is this. When you get your miracle, oftentimes you stop praying. Oftentimes you lose that relationship with God. And I will tell you, I've never been closer to God than when I was suffering. And I wasn't praying as much. And I'm embarrassed to say that, but it's true because I was like happy. I was joyful. Life is good again. But then one day, Sarah just started getting weak again. And she, like, for 6 months, every day she got stronger. And then for 6 months, every day she got weaker. So she ended up living exactly a year longer than she should have. But one day I took her, she went back in the hospital twice, just like her sister. She had a tube put in her because she couldn't eat anymore. And we took her home when the doctor said they couldn't do any more for her. And one day I just knew. I went and looked at her. I screamed. And Drew came in, took all the tubes off of her and all of the wires, and she passed away in my arms. And I was angry. I was really angry. And I stayed away from God and I stopped praying. And one day I woke up and I kind of gave myself a mental slap. I said, you know better than this. God is the only thing that's ever given you any joy, any peace, any comfort. And you're deliberately staying away from him because you're angry. You need to go back to adoration. So I went to the church and I was walking down the aisle and I ran into my pastor and he said to me, how are you feeling? And I said, not good. He goes, what's wrong? I go, I am so angry. And he said, have you told him that, pointing to the tabernacle? I go, Father, I don't think you can tell God you're pissed at him. I'm really mad. And he goes, yes, you can. I said, no, I don't think you, Father, I think you get smote if you do things like that. Like I just see this thunderbolt come down, zapping me. And he goes, Cyndi, he can't help you unless you're honest with him. You have to bare your heart with him. If you're not completely honest with him, you have no relationship, and he can't help you, and he wants to help you. I was like, okay. So I go down there and I fall on my knees. I said, you want to know how I feel? I'll tell you how I feel. I am so angry at you. I told you I didn't care. I wasn't asking for a healing because I know my daughter Kelly's in heaven, and I knew, even though it hurt, that Sarah will be in heaven too. And I didn't want to go through this. And I said, what kind of a God are you? You give me hope. I tell you, take her. I'm okay with it. I'll live with it. You give me hope. You heal her, but not really. And then you take her back. I go, you're like a monster guy. You're like I'm like a little cat toy. You're just bouncing around. I go, I can't trust you anymore. You failed me. You failed me. And I'm sitting there thinking, I will never hear from God ever again in my life. And immediately I hear, have I failed you? How have I failed you? I have answered every true prayer of your heart. And immediately I knew he was right. Immediately I was humbled and I was like, oh, I didn't see that. Yes, you have. You have, because I immediately knew. I said, what are the truest prayers of your heart, Cyndi? That your husband get knocked on the head so that he has as great a faith as you do, so that you can both raise your children in a truly Catholic family, so that you all end up going to heaven together. Those were my 3 deepest prayers of my life when this whole thing started. And I looked at what happened by raising those 2 children, with having those 2 girls in our house. We prayed every night as a family over those girls, my boys and my husband, every night. We never failed. And my children grew up praying. We still did, even after the girls passed away. We prayed together. And I tell people, there's a mystic that said, when you pray together as a family, you should envision like a thread being knit through each one of your hearts, pulling you so tight together so that when the hard times come, you have the strength that keeps you together. And we had that strength to live not beyond just one death in our family, but two. And, there's a statistic out there that of families that lose a child, like something like over 90% of them will end up in divorce because you can't handle the pain, the anger, and you look at the other person, you feel it all over again. You have to get away from it. And my husband and I have a great marriage, and that's only because we pray that we live through this and survive. And so I said, yeah. And we take our kids to adoration, to confession once a month. We raise them just like Mary's messages. My oldest son considered a vocation for a long time, but all of my children are they have good faith. That's just because we followed Mary's messages. But anyway, that wouldn't have happened without these girls, because I was living a life where God was not part of my life, that I was also focused on my career, on athleticism, and getting my kids in the right school, everything of the world. If that book hadn't fallen off that shelf, I don't know where I would be right now. I would be lost. But God stepped into my life. He gave me those two precious girls, and they changed the way I lived. And now I have joy in my heart despite losing them. And I remember looking at him going, yeah, you did. You did. You answered every prayer, not the way I ever would have thought of, but honestly, it's probably the only way that they would have worked with me, because I'm very prideful and very stubborn. And you gave me a child I couldn't cure with medicine, my rock, my foundation. Okay, you did it. I said, but you know what, Lord? A miracle? That would have been totally cool. Do you know how many people would have been brought to you through a miracle? And it hurt in my heart. Cyndi, your faith in me, despite the death of two of your children, will speak louder than any miracle ever could. And I said, yeah, you're right on that one too, but that's not nice for me. And so about a few months later, no, actually 3 years later, I heard in adoration, Cyndi, I need you to go back to Medjugorje. And I said no. I said, I don't think so. I'm too tired. And he said, you're not going to deny me again. And I was like, okay, I'll go. So I go to Medjugorje, and I remember the second day I was here, I was walking through the field. I was staying over Jurvish, near Mariana's house, and I was walking into town here to go to meet some girls for lunch. And as I'm walking across the field, I hear in my heart, climb Apparition Hill. Mm-hmm. I was like, I've already passed Apparition Hill. I'm going into town. Climb Apparition Hill. I don't want to climb Apparition Hill. I'm going to be hot, and I'm going to be sweaty. I'm supposed to meet the girls. And I heard for the third time, climb Apparition Hill. I was like, oh, Cyndi, like, you don't even know why you're here. And if you're supposed to climb the hill, climb the hill. I was like, okay, I'm sorry, I'll climb the hill. So I climb the hill, and I get to the top, and I notice that my shoe's untied. And I'm down on my knee, tying my shoe. And I realize, out of all of this, I have never consecrated my children or my husband to Mary. So I go in my heart, and I say, Mary, I'm sorry. I mean, I know you know this, but all of my children are yours. You take care of them. I'll do what I can, but they're your responsibility. I want you to have final say in their lives, and my husband as well. And I look up, and from me to about 5 feet in front of me, I see Our Lady standing there with my two girls, one in each of her arms, holding them like this. And I was just like, I was like, oh my God, Mary, I know my children are in heaven, but to know that you have them and to see them, unbelievable. Thank you. And then my humanity just kicks in. And I said, but Mary, why? Why did they have to die? I did everything. And the minute I asked why, my children were gone. And she was holding the dead body of Jesus, her son, in her arms, kind of like the Pietà. And she looked at me, and we weren't talking, it was all mentally. We're speaking to each other. And as she's looking at me, I hear her say, why did your children have to die? Why did my son have to die? It was a sacrifice that you and I were asked to give. And then she was gone. And I tell people, if my daughter's death and life and short death had anything to do with salvation of souls like her sons did, I would do it all over again in a heartbeat, and I wouldn't change a bit, because his death opened the gates to heaven for us and gave us the chance to live forever in paradise again. that's everything. And if my children had any drop of that, it's worth everything.
Mm.
And I don't think that we understand the value of the cross, and that I know it's painful, but at the same time, I've never had more joy in my life than going through all of this. And I know it makes no sense, but that is the stumbling block of the cross. You know, the more you suffer, the more joy you have. And I just love the Lord so much. And I'm so proud of my daughters and anything that they could have done in this world. And I just want to share their stories, because I have had people say that they've named their daughters after my children. I have people calling me saying that their lives, that this whole story has changed them and brought them back to God. I have people on my trip to Medjugorje now that are here just because they've heard my story. And I just want them to continue bringing souls to the Lord. And
That's so powerful. Look, I'm crying.
yeah.
Don't tell it I'm German. You don't cry. That's amazing. But at the end, what would you tell people? Everybody wants to have that relationship, that little voice. How can they train?
Through prayer. It's just through spending time in prayer. There's a person back in the States called Mark Hart who says, people say that you need a relationship with Christ. You should pray and deepen that relationship. He says, you have no relationship with Christ unless you pray. Prayer is your relationship with Christ.
So you talk to him like a friend?
I talk to him. I joke with him. I talk to him. I'm so casual with my relationship with the Lord. I mean, I say things like, I'll tell him exactly how I feel, because it's a real relationship. I talk to him as I would any other friend. I joke with him. I tease him, everything. And cry, things. There's nothing I hold back from him. And that's, what kind of relationship do you want with your spouse? You want that complete, open intimacy with them. So that's the way.
Step by step, you will hear it, because you can think it's an illusion.
Well, I will tell you, when the man on the airplane, I was hearing this voice, and I'm assuming it's God, and I was, working with it. But I remember when that happened to me, and I could barely hear it. And I realized, how many times have you heard something in your heart to do something? You think, oh, that's just me. That's crazy. And I said to myself, either this is God for sure, or it's me, or I'm going crazy, but I'm going to find out. And I'm going to do whatever this voice tells me to do. So I did. And so when that happened, and I got into that whole situation where I was actually saying things that wasn't coming out of my mouth, I know for sure it's God. And I think you have to just do that. You have to just ask. And I tell people, I run a Bible study, and I tell everybody most of the time, God speaks to everybody. It's that gentle nudge in your heart. Mm-hmm. Answer it. Answer it. If he tells you to go give somebody something, go do it. I was at the grocery store the other day, and I was watching a woman come in, and she was hobbling with a cane, and she was maybe 55 years old. She's too young to be using a cane. And I said, Lord, look at her. I feel sorry for her. She's in pain, and I can't believe she's using a cane. And I heard she doesn't want to be. Why don't you do something nice for her? It's like, oh, all right. So she's struggling to get the card out, and she can't get it. So I get the card out and I hand it to her. I go, here, take this one. And she looked at me. She said, thank you. And so I went in the store. She came in like about 2 minutes later, and she said, can I talk to you? And I said, yeah. She goes, I have had this cane for 3 weeks. No one has done anything for me. You're the first person that's done anything nice to me. And she was crying. She goes, I just want to thank you for being a nice person. And I said, this is from Jesus. He told me to do this for you. She started crying. She goes, you are a good person. Thank you. And she walked away. But this is how God uses us. He uses us to help other people. He wants to show everybody that they're seen, that they're loved, that they're noticed. How many of us just don't even look at each other anymore? If we would just listen to our hearts and answer that call. When you hear somebody say, call that person. I do that now. I've called this one woman twice. Call her. I call her. And the second time I called her, she said, Cyndi, why do you call me at certain times? I go, I don't know. I just think of you. She goes, both times you called me, I was considering suicide. This is the way the Lord uses you. If you will, in prayer, take it seriously. Jacques Philippe, in his book, Time for God, says, your prayer life is not based on your emotion. It's not based on what you feel when you're with him. You'll have times where you're dry, times when you're very joyful, but most of the times it's like you don't feel a lot. But it's the consistency. The number one thing is consistency. Every single day, 30 minutes minimum, you spend with the Lord. You don't let anything get in the way. We all find time for what we love.
Instagram, Facebook,
Yes.
YouTube.
How much time do we really scrolling or exercising or shopping or whatever? When your most important thing on this earth is to find your way to heaven and and the only way you're going to be judged in this extra life, how much you loved. It's not what you did. It's not what you earned. It's nothing. It's how much you allowed your heart to be loved, to open up to love in the presence of God. And so 30 minutes a day minimum, and it's not based on emotion. It's consistency and dedication. Love is a dedicated commitment. No matter how you feel, if you're sick, if you're not, you spend that time. And you trust, and courage are the two things that I tell people. Trust that God talks to you. Have the courage to answer what puts in your heart. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, even better, it's probably from the Lord. He's going to test you. When you say yes to little things, like getting a cart for somebody, that takes nothing. To handing somebody something on an airplane and a cross like that, he will use you. The more you answer him, you'll be doing more and more things. So you just can't get people to say yes to him. Commit to him. He loves you. Spend the time with him, and your life will be amazing. I promise.
An adventure.
An adventure.
And it's a contradiction. Oh, you went through a lot of pain. I call it the baptism of pain.
Mm-hmm. It is. But the thing is, we all have a cross. Every single one of us are going to get a cross. How you deal with it is if you'll give it to the Lord or not, and he'll transform it into joy, and it'll be the best thing you've ever happened to you.
My cross is light, Jesus says.
Yeah.
When you carried with him, when you had it over.
Yes, it is.
Because it looked at me, when you said, this first child came to heal you because of your father and your mother. She was the messenger of God that you talked to your husband and said, I didn't want to.
I would never have. I'd still be hiding my faith, and that's the other thing I think we go through is like, my faith is, I'm good with God. I don't need to be, I'll just do my stuff. Well, that doesn't do anything for the Lord. If we all just live our own individual lives, we're a community and we build each other up, and he'll keep pushing you.
Wow. And you have the experience also, like my spiritual guide said, you hear better when you go to confession, when your heart is pure.
True. Yeah.
How is confession? What do you tell people about confession?
Confession is powerful. It's very, very powerful. I don't think you can grow spiritually without it, to be honest with you. You have to cleanse your soul. And you get so many graces from confession. People think, well, I haven't done anything bad. I haven't done anything terrible. Well, we can always improve. You get so many graces from them. And you also get the graces that he wants to give you. I tell people, by not going to confession, it's like getting presents put under your Christmas tree that you just don't open. You don't open them, but they're sitting there. And he's waiting to give you so much and so many gifts and so many graces for your joy and for your fulfillment. And it's like you just walk away and say, nah, I don't want them. I don't want to open it up. It's really hurtful to him. You think Jesus, the first thing he did when he rose from the dead was what? He came to the room. He showed everybody his wounds. He said, peace be with you. And then he breathed on them immediately, received the Holy Spirit. He said, whose sins you forgive are forgiving them. Whose sins you retain are retained. Meaning that the first thing he couldn't wait to tell them, forgive sins. He came to free of us of our sins. He gave that power to his priests. And for us not to make a veil of that, I think breaks his heart. I really do. I think it's the whole reason he died on the cross. And we don't take advantage of it. It's terrible.
And then our church is a church of order. Here in the state of grace, we can receive the Eucharist. It seems people don't understand the biggest gift now.
I know.
What is it? Can you explain? What do you tell
the gift is
people?
It's Jesus' heart. It says in the Catechism that one of the primary reasons for receiving the Eucharist is to grow in intimacy with Jesus. To grow in intimacy. If you want to hear Jesus, you want to feel Jesus, you want to grow in that relationship, you need to receive him. You need to take him into your body, because your soul needs nourishment just as our bodies need nourishment. And we are body and soul. But right now, most of our world is getting us to focus on our bodies. And we forget we have a soul, and our soul will live forever, ever. And our bodies will go in the grave. They'll be raised again. But your soul is what will live forever and determine your joy in heaven. So you need to nourish your soul. And it is truly the body, blood, soul, and divinity. I do a whole podcast on the Eucharistic miracles, showing that it really is the heart of Jesus. It's the heart of Jesus. It's AB blood. It's the left ventricle The left, as a physician, I know the left ventricle, the blood, it shoots blood to your entire body. It nourishes you. It sends oxygenated blood to everything. So it's the most important. And then it's AB blood, which means AB blood is the universal. It rejects no one. It's you can give that blood. That blood can take anybody in. So it takes everybody in. It rejects no one. So it's really important that it's AB blood. I don't know if people understand that. But as a physician, there's certain blood types that you can give any, you don't have to worry about cross-matching it. They'll take any of them. So
The open arms on the cross, no?
he wants to take everybody in. He wants to nourish you and feed you. He just wants you. He's not rejecting you, and he wants to feed you. So.
And you pray the rosary?
Every day.
With your husband together?
Yes.
They say you pray together, you stay together, you feel?
Our marriage got really strong. It's strongest when we started praying the rosary every night together. So it's a great thing. When you can start praying with your husband, and here I am not even telling my husband I believe in God, and now we pray together all the time. We walk together and we pray the rosary a lot. And one time this one man was passing us on the bicycle. He was riding his bicycle. We're walking around our neighborhood, passes us, and he stops his bike, he looks back, he goes, "Can you guys pray for me?" And I was like, I didn't know what he's talking about. And I realized he heard us praying the rosary. And so I said, yes. And he goes, "Thank you. I need someone to pray for me." And I went off. But, people see you praying. It makes a difference. And it does increase your relationship and just strengthens it. So we would not be together if we didn't pray together. I don't believe losing 2 children without prayer. I don't know that anyone could survive that without prayer. But it brought us closer together. And that's the thing. God will bring you together if you bring everything to him. He will keep you strong.
So you made the experience when you hand over, thy will be done, because that was the next lesson, no?
Yes.
With the prayer meeting, thy, not your will be done.
I learned that we always need to pray for God's will. So when people ask me to pray for them, or pray for somebody else, I say I will, but I will pray that his will be done. But I will pray that it may be healing, or it may be what you want, but in the end that it's his will. And you need to trust that whatever happens to you is what God wants. It's his permissive will, or it's his actual will. But nothing happens without a reason. He has his hands in everything, and you have to trust that. Even if you lose your child, even if you lose your husband, even if you lose your job, even if you lose anything, there's a reason to it, and you will see it in the end, and you have to trust him. He only ever acts out of love. We think we know what's right in our lives, but we don't. I didn't know what was right in mine. And I look back on what he did in my life, and I know by giving me those 2 girls and taking them young, it was the best thing for me. And it was the best thing for my community. It brought so many people back to Christ. I had young kids fasting for my daughters, praying in ways they probably never would have. So it really increased the faith in the community, which sounds crazy, but
that's the contradiction, no?
It is.
And at the end, we are here in Medjugorje. You experienced so much here. And you say you come back 26 years now, no?
Yes, I was only going to go the first time. And then people started noticing a change in me. They wanted to know how I survived what I survived. And they wanted to come back here with me. So I started out saying, if I can get 5 people to come, I'll set a trip together. And then every year there was more and more people that wanted to come. Right now I'm with a group of 25 that wanted to come with me. So whoever wants to come, I set up a trip to come back here and take people. And I love to see what happens in their lives, because they bring that back to their family, and then it keeps spreading throughout the world. And it is really beautiful to watch. I have never had anybody go on a trip that didn't really love it and grow deeper in their relationship with Christ.
What happened? Can you in general say what happened to people here?
I've had people who have started companies and selling things, religious items. But when they're here, I will tell you, a lot of people experience seeing like the miracle of the sun. I have a lot of people that see their rosaries turning gold. But the one thing they all say is that when they leave here, they have found such incredible peace. And that's the goal of this whole thing. These little miracles you have, smelling roses, all that stuff. I tell people it's like little candy kisses that the Lord and Our Lady's giving you to say, I see you, keep going, keep going. Because a lot of us need it in our early lives. We need to have that tangible stuff, but ultimately you feel that change in your heart, and that's what it's about. When you feel that peace, you know Christ is in your heart, and you can, the waters can be so troubled on top. You have that deep rudder of peace that sails you through it. Just because you have peace in your life doesn't mean that there's not troubles in your life, but somehow they don't affect you the same way, because you understand more of the meaning of life and things, and you have your tools to deal with it. You pray, go to confession, fast, go to the Eucharist, and
Read the Bible.
read the Bible. Oh, read the Bible is great. You can't know the Lord without reading His Word. You cannot. I love the Bible. I read it every day, and it continues to speak to you. So Mary knows what she's doing. Do those 5 things. You will have peace and you will have joy despite anything that happens in your life. If I can do this, you can do it too.
At the end, if they want to come, they ask how to get to Medjugorje. You have a website or what?
Yes, it's my name, Cyndi Peterson. It's CYNDI Peterson, PETRSON. Is that CyndiPeterson.com.
And then you have a podcast. Is that on YouTube? Where is that podcast?
It's not on YouTube yet, but it's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
How do they find you there?
It's my name. It's called The Cyndi Peterson Show. So it's CYNDI PETRSON, The Cyndi Peterson Show. You just Google it. It'll take you right to either Apple or Spotify.
Wow. What can I say? Thank you for the beautiful interview.
Thank you, Tom.